So, welcome to probably the most vulnerable podcast episode that I have ever done because today's guest turned the tables and put me in the therapy chair. But today's guest is incredible. She is a master at human design. And so, on today's podcast, you're going to get an introduction to human design, how you can use it in your life and business, and then we break the fourth wall. And you get to listen live to how my human design is broken down, hear my reactions as you get behind the scenes, because Rosy does an entire full reading of me to the depth of my soul, why I love what I do, why I was created to do the work I'm doing. And this one was emotional. This one I was very, very emotional and very moved and very called and felt very raw and very vulnerable. And it was incredible. And so, human design is not something that I've studied. I've learned a lot about it because it's been taught to me, but it helps me make so much sense of myself. And it's been an incredible tool for me. And so, we decided we'd just break the fourth wall for you to get to listen. So, come along. You'll get to learn probably more about me, but also human design that you were than you bargained for, what resonates in me, how I tick, and maybe even understand me a little bit better. But that's what we have in today's show. So, Rosy, thank you. But without further ado, let's get into it now. Everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Mind of George Show. And today's is going to be different. I'm probably going to be a little bit sweaty, palms might be a little nervous, but I'm here to receive all of it, because today we are joined by an absolute incredible woman. She's like, if you open the dictionary to the word heart, she's like the picture of the walking definition, just giving everybody who speaks of her speaks so highly. She just breathes life into people and just constantly stands for people. And so we have a gift today because my dear friend Rosy is here, and she's going to be kind of turning the tables on me today. And so Rosy is here because we're going to be talking about human design, and I'm going to have her explain what that is. I'll have her introduce herself, and then she has my chart in front of her. And so this podcast is going to be me in the couch with a live audience, basically, of hearing my chart, my readings, and her breaking it down. And I think one of the best parts is that Rosy also knows me and listens to the podcast and like knows how I coach people and has been on calls with me. And so I am really excitedly nervous about this. And so, Rosy, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's all so perfect. I'm so happy to be here.
It is. No, I mean it absolutely is. And when I say nervous, like it is the most excited nervous. That means my heart's open. Like this is like the best. And then I was like, yeah, I want somebody who like knows underneath
Hmm.
my hood, who's also reading me from the outside to be able to put correlations together. And so that's kind of
Yeah.
cool. So before we get into it though, I would love, to give context. So who are you? Why are you so magical? Have you always been a unicorn? Were you born a Care Bear, or is this
Oh
something
my
that you had
word.
to get to?
Oh, great questions. I believe I've always been a unicorn. I married a unicorn by human design. I have unicorn children, and it's just how it is. So um, I'm a, I'm a projector in human design, a 1/4 splenic projector. And I grew up in sunny San Diego. I'm back home. My husband's in the Navy. He is a commander of a ballistic missile submarine. We have chosen to live apart. So I've been single parenting our 4 children in San Diego because I am solar powered, and I had a senior in high school in the middle of the world shutdown, and that's when my husband got called up to command. And I was like, I love you, babe, but I'm not going to Washington. And so I've been holding down the fort in beautiful San Diego. I have a degree in reading literacy and multisensory learning, and I paused that when I had my twins. So I have a 19-year-old daughter, a 16-year-old daughter, and 10-year-old twin boys. So super busy, but also I am designed to still work and not just be a mom. So
Mm.
um, I've always had a rub around that. growing up very fundamentalist Christian and actually crazy, found out that I was actually part of a cult. I never really called it that before, but apparently on the podcast lands, it's being categorized as a cult. So my fundamentalist upbringing is even more like my eyes are wide open to it right now. And I have a degree in Bible, and when my life, I had a massive trauma enter in my adult life, and I tried all the normal routes that fundamentalist Christians take when they hit trauma, and it just didn't really work for me. So I went
Mm,
seeking for solutions, and several found me. Um, First off, in the route of essential oils, I was having a complete panic attack, and I huffed this oil, and my I got back into my body and was like, what just happened? And
mm,
that sent me on a path of figuring out what happened. And and that's where I learned about the chakra system and energy modalities, which, as you heard my background, I was like, I can never tell anyone this. I can never talk about this. I will be crucified, like literally.
yep.
But I couldn't keep my mouth shut, um and so I just dove into that whole world, and I definitely began to really heal using those modalities, and that just took me to my next level of learning, which was plant medicine. So we have that in common as well. And you want to talk about efficiency.
Yep.
Efficiency, that'll do it. That's how I classify plant medicine, is it's
Hmm.
wildly efficient.
Yep.
And and then in that space I was ready to receive human design. And when human design found me, is how I like to describe it, I never, ever, ever felt so seen, deeply seen and
Hmm.
understood in my life.
Hmm.
I already had a lighthouse tattoo on my forearm
Yes, you
before
did.
I found out that I was a projector in human design.
Yep.
So I was just like, how does this crazy preschool looking chart with shapes and lines and colors, how
Yep.
is this? How? And
Yep.
so just as you're hearing the trend, my pattern is to dive in head first, learn all that I possibly could. And at the time, because I'm sure you're picking up what I'm putting down, I still am currently choosing to be in the network marketing industry. I'm literally designed for it. um, and I, when I saw how clearly you could learn about yourself, I had to take this news to my team, because in network marketing, especially, I'm sure there's other industries that are similar, but in network marketing, you march the leaders across the stage, everyone's taking notes about how they became successful, and they all go home and try and do the 5 steps to be a six-figure earner. And when it doesn't work out, what happens is you go, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do this? Why isn't it working for me? There must be something wrong with me. And you know this. You work with entrepreneurs at the deepest level, and I think that's probably a
Hmm.
common theme among
Everywhere.
anyone who's brave enough to start their own business. So
Yep.
I learned about the esoteric form of human design, got several certifications there, and then I slid over to get my MBA in human design, so that I could really sit with entrepreneurs, business builders, network marketers, coaches.
Yep.
Um, the sky's the limit. I go between personal readings and professional. I just, wherever the invitations come, that's where I am. And I'm still in on this journey of really discovering myself, but I take pure honor in being able to be invited to sit and reflect someone else's brilliance back. And that's what I do. I'm a projector. I actually see other people more clearly than I see myself. And
Hmm.
so it's like I joke around about, like, I thank you, George, for having rosy colored glasses on, because my light shines bright. I go right into the shadow dark spaces. And you know how this works, friend. Like, as soon as it's in the light, then you can bring awareness to it. You can begin to address it. And I love using this tool, as I mentioned, professionally. I love using this tool personally, especially as a very tangible way to get back safely in the body post trauma.
Yep. Yep.
Because as you know, when you're in trauma, when you're triggered, the logical brain shuts off. Your body is having a physiological response. You sweat, you get fixated, your heart increases, all the things. And so it's a beautiful, tangible tool for you to just like put your hand on your body and remind yourself who you
Yep.
are in those moments where you require grounding and require presence. This becomes because when you say grounding and when you say presence, and then to bring it back to like my faith base, even faith and all of those things, like they felt fuzzy to me. Like I never knew if I was on the right path. I didn't know if I was choosing, I'll intersect between my faith base and this esoteric language, right? Like, what does it mean to ground? What do you mean? What do I do? Like, I can tell you how you're designed to ground. I can tell you how you will know whether a choice is correct for you. And as you begin to get back safely in your body. So for me, it was sort of a back door to be like, oh my word, I am designed to speak and be heard, as opposed to speak when spoken to, don't talk back. I mean, if I could just tell you how many times I got spanked for having the last word. Woo! When I'm designed to have the last word.
Yep.
So all that to say, huge introduction, my word. Human design, to answer the other part of your question, is a very interesting science of differentiation. It's literally, it's you are your own thumbprint, uniquely and beautifully made. The chart is literally based on 3 questions. This is another reason I just fell madly, deeply in love with this assessment, is because I'm addicted to all of them. I was like, just let me understand my
Yep.
crazy. Let me take every assessment out there.
Yep. Yep.
But this one requires you answering 3 questions:
Yep.
when you were born, what time you were born, where you were born.
Yep. Yep.
Which, as you know, you don't have to use the mind for any of that. You just have to look up your birth certificate and
Yep.
input that information, and then a chart pops up. And
Yep.
it's a little bit of astrology, a little bit of quantum physics, which I know you love all of that, a little bit of the Chinese I Ching, a little bit of the Kabbalah. Um,
Yep.
I know I'm forgetting some things,
No,
but
you're good.
it's a conglomeration of all the
I'm gonna
things.
I'm gonna put a bow on it. I'm gonna put a bow on it. So for
Perfect.
everybody listening, I'm about to have Rosie just kind of start breaking down my chart. And Rosie, I think we'll probably like put it in a time container so then we can talk
Sure.
about it for a little bit.
Thank you.
But yeah, of course. And with that, one thing I'm gonna say to people is I've done almost like every personality test, the ones that are paid corporately that are 100 grand. Never because I wanted to do them, more because
Mm,
people were trying to obsess about how to understand me because I don't make sense. And so I find all these because as I have the podcast and I go speak, I have incredible people that reach out with these skill sets and these gifts and they tell them and they
mhm,
offer them to me and they do all these readings. And I want to say this because this isn't about trying to put yourself in a box or use one. It's about giving you multiple ways in wrapping papers to
mhm,
identify behaviors in your life. And so don't think of these things as like it's just human design or just disc or just consciousness or just trauma or just paradigm or just
mhm,
any of the multitudes that are out there. The proclivity is for you to lean into them to see if they help you resonate with how it's describing and how the behaviors and actions are responding in your body. Because if you can recognize them and they feel right, then that just gives you a tool to understand how to drive your car in a language that works for you. And so I wanted to set that so that you can understand that if anything lands for you today, even in hearing mine, and I will give examples of how it has expressed itself in my life, just allow that to resonate and be open. It doesn't mean you have to go do human design readings. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means that you might have another clue as to a way to master yourself, master your behaviors, and achieve what you want. So that's how I wanted to describe it.
Perfect. It's beautiful. Beautiful description. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, dear, the keys are yours. I'm just gonna buckle into the passenger seat.
Buckle
So,
up, friend. Let's go.
okay,
Okay, so you are a generator. You're literally here to send out and template for others how to work well, live well, be well. You
Mm,
have an energizer battery that keeps going and going and going. You're not here to do everything for everyone. You're only here to respond to things that are deeply satisfying to you. And that is how you can begin to step into boundaries and clarity. And I mean, as I listen to your processes and your podcasts and have taken part in several of your offerings, like you do that, you do this, like you send this out, which is beautiful. So I want to just reflect that back. I've really enjoyed being a part of receiving you sending this energy out into the world. Most of the world are generators, and like 73%. So
mm,
this is a big deal that you are out templating for others how to get safely back into their bodies, listen to your gut, trust your gut. I hear you using this language in your podcast, and I'm like, yes, yes, more of that, please. Um, you in particular have um, this really so everyone has consistent strengths that they can lean into. So I'm excited to share yours. Like I'm sure it will be of no surprise. In fact, I call most of my sessions confirmation conversations because very rarely is someone like, yeah, no, that doesn't describe me at all.
yep.
Most people
Yep.
are like, oh, I knew that about me. And now I'm like, more of that, please. More
Yep.
of that, please. Lean into it, lead with it, fine tune this, so it becomes a confirmation of how to funnel your energy. So your energy does flow down to the root. So you, by design, have a grounding presence. You provide a grounding presence for others. And it's this strength of concentration. And I love this so much, George. Like, okay. It's a combination of focused energy and stillness.
Mm.
You require both in order to fully embody and emanate out concentration. And if I didn't just describe how you move through your day,
No, yeah, I mean, you know it just as well as I do. I'm over here. I'm like, preach,
yeah,
sister, preach.
yes, also, George, like the stillness part of your design that is part of this focus concentration is a huge part of your life's work. So I just, again, more of that, please. Like, if not that you needed my permission, but I'm happy to give you a permission slip that
I'll take it.
you pursuing and prioritizing your stillness practices is 100% a part of how you can continue to show up energetically healthy, energetically well, and then sending and templating that energy out into the world.
Mm, I love it.
You also have two other strengths that go from the root to the spleen. And the spleen is one of the extra chakras that human design has introduced. Fascinating enough, when I learned how to do healing touch, which is similar to Reiki, um, we always connected the body to the spleen. That was one of the centers that we would work toward. And as I was learning about the chakras as a newbie a couple of years ago, the spleen wasn't really talked about. It is talked about in traditional Chinese medicine. It's a huge piece of the human design body graph. It's the seat of intuition. It's also survival instinct. So it's where fear is housed in the body graph, and also in its healthiest expression, fear is intended to inform. You must be embodied and in the present moment in order to address fear. And the correct and healthy step to get to the other side of fear is just that, to take a step, to move. Once you are stuck, that's your indication to zoom out and see, okay, what do I need to do? And to just, do all the things you talk about on your podcast.
Yeah.
But you know, we were wired with fight or flight. And if you think of fight or flight, which are both survival instincts, they're actions. You're either ready to just go to blows or you run, which are action steps. our nervous system has adapted to fawn and freeze over time because of just the overstimulation of perceived dangers, perceived or real dangers. You know very well. You're very familiar with both.
Yep.
Um, but in its most basic form, action is connected to fear. And so you send out, I'm so excited to tell you, you send out two consistent ways to, again, demonstrate template and share with others so they can know, okay, if George can do it, then I can too. So that first individual strength is called the channel of judgment. And the way, and this is what you do, you literally get partnered in to dive into people's organizations, businesses, and you know how to fine tune. You literally go in and you judge what you see, and then you manipulate what is in the way so that more life force, business force, abundance, and flow can happen. So
Yep.
that is what the channel of judgment is. And it
Mm-hmm.
is a combination of correction. And when you correct and remove the boulder from the stream, then vitality, life force, business abundance, clients, all the things just come flowing with that much more speed, grace, and ease.
Mm-hmm.
And this is your consistent strength, George. It's
Mm-hmm.
um it's again correction and vitality. So, we are limited in our understanding of words, right? But in human design, it's this beautiful opportunity to like zoom out and see things in their highest perspective. Um, and so, yeah, this again is another huge part of your life's purpose. So I keep using the term life purpose and just to help people understand there's a chart you get and there's this two columns of numbers, and the top two numbers on both sides of on the chart of the columns, when you combine them together, give you this beautiful story of your life's purpose. And um, three of your four strengths are the two I just mentioned: the stillness piece, the correction piece, and the vitality. And so again, I'm happy to just reflect back to you, like, bravo, friend, for, I don't know if you consciously strategically created your business models, but seeing your design, I have to imagine it's been an intuitive journey of, I would actually love to hear
Yeah,
if
I'm
you don't
I'm gonna
mind.
share. Yeah, I'm gonna share because I don't. I think it's only been shared behind closed doors to my private consulting clients, and so you're gonna appreciate this a lot, right? So I'm familiar with human design because I've had a few people give me readings and tells. Like I knew I was a generator. I knew my default was to respond.
Mhm,
The other things that you help me break down and understand are monumental and make so much sense. And so here's what actually happened. So when I was the food blogger,
mhm,
the reason I was successful is the energy that I was using was from trauma, right? It was insecurity. I was living in my wounds. I was using social media and women on the internet to emotionally cheat on Lindsay and be unavailable to my family but available to them because I could hide, right? Like I was just living in
mhm,
brokenness and I
mhm,
couldn't see it. And so what ended up happening was the universe basically took it all away from me, or I took it away from myself, right? It gave me the
mhm,
lessons I wasn't listening, and that's where I walked away when Lindsay was 8 months pregnant and disappeared and started over. Well, in the starting over is when my plant medicine started, when my self integration started, when my stillness started, my meditation started. And so as I started healing, I started putting these habits and behaviors in my life that were helping me. And by default, I didn't realize that I was also then teaching those to clients without realizing it. And so
mhm,
as I did this over the years, about 3 years ago, one day it hit me and I looked back and I was like, holy shit. Every single thing I've done, from sitting with the shaman when Lindsay was about to pop and him telling me I had no purpose for my life and he told me to sit in silence. And then I wrote down to stand with structure in the face of resistance to create possibility. And I just kept it in a notebook. And then 2.5 years later, my brother was my graphic designer, and I asked him to make me a logo. And he's like, well, that's the definition of a lighthouse. So then I surrounded my life with lighthouses. And then I started teaching customer journey 2 years later, or through relationships, then customer journey. And so then everything morphed into relationships, speed algorithms, lighthouses. And so like my entire business and my entire environment by accident, but now intentionally, has been
Hmm.
designed to remind me and hold me accountable to what only felt right to me and gave me results in healing my trauma. So even like the wedge of expectations that I teach, and I teach it to entrepreneurs to master themselves and to give to their clients, is because those were the behaviors that got me out of my addictions and out of my trauma. When I created the SOS model, I realized that I'd spent most of my life waiting for somebody to hand me a fish, but yet I had all the tools. I just didn't know how to practice them, and I didn't have a baseline muscle to fall back on. So I put my wedge of expectations into place. And then I said, well, what happens if I have a bad day or I get stuck and nobody can come save me? And I was like, oh, inner tools, inner circle, outer circle, boom. And then that I started teaching to entrepreneurs. And then I have them start
Yes.
teaching it to their clients to take collagen, to hit a fitness result, to boom. So then the first 5 steps of the customer journey, the acknowledge, prepare, project, pre-handle, excite, those were looking at where I, because I lived in trauma, couldn't communicate effectively and always felt frustrated and misunderstood, and other people felt unheard by me. And so through all the personal development work, the psychology, the EMDR, the behavioral psychology, and the certifications, I learned what I needed to ask people in order for me to build solid ground and stretch my muscle to have people feel safe and how I wanted to. And then those 5 steps became the first 5 steps I put in every customer journey I teach to every business. And so that's the story.
It's perfect. Again, I'm so happy to confirm that your journey. It's you just can't even make this shit up.
You can't. And the more I hear about this, like the more the more like I'm obvious, I like my heart rate's probably through the roof right now because my body's shaking. Yeah, my heart rate's 124 from listening, right?
Yeah.
So obviously it lands at a very, very deep level, right? My heart rate on the podcast is normally like 61 beats per minute.
Oh my word.
Yeah, so
Wow.
yeah, so like
Well,
my
I've got
hand,
one other strength to share that might
I
explain
can't
why
wait.
your heart
I
rate
can't
is up.
wait. I can't wait. Keep going.
Okay, so the final strength that you have consistent access to is literally called the strength of tenaciousness and
Yep.
tenacity.
Yep.
And if that's just not the topic of most of your podcasts, I don't know
That
what is. Like,
that is it.
and just wait till you hear it. I love this one. I see this one as like Scrappy Doo from Scooby Doo. You know, Scrappy Doo is just always like just ready to go to blows, right?
Yep.
Um, and you're like holding back, and his arms are swinging. Like it's a
Yep.
combination, literally, of the fighter and the game player.
Mm,
And the way I see this is a very individual strength. And the whole point is for you to first know what's worth fighting for, and then to show up with pure tenacity and show up in that scrappy energy. This is worth fighting for. I am worth fighting for. You are worth fighting for. Your business is worth fighting for. Your relationships, your like, and everyone has their own constructs of what that is because it's a very individual energy. And I'm sure you could, I'm sure you have something that's coming right to mind when I say this and speak this.
well, of
Um,
course, it's what I do for people.
yeah, yeah.
It's what I do.
And knowing like this is your game, friend. What are the
Yeah.
rules? Set the
Yeah.
rules, play the game, know that it's worth fighting for.
And I'll tell
And
everybody. I'll tell you why, so you know why. Like the reason I trademarked relationship speed algorithms wasn't because of marketing. It wasn't because of business. It's because 6 years ago, I had to look in the mirror and realize that what happened to me was not my fault, but healing it was my responsibility. And when I looked at that, the amount of collateral damage that I caused in the world because my whole life I just needed somebody to care about me deeper than the wrapping paper. Like just to see me without the wounds, without the story, without the drug abuse, without the sexual abuse, without the social services, like not see me as like a wounded boy or somebody to feel bad with, but just like see me so I felt safe. To be like, hey, I get this. Like as a kid, I always knew, like I knew I never wanted to be like my parents. Like God rest my father who had demons and I healed with him and the drugs, and my mother who's still going through it. But like they didn't have it easy, but they didn't want to do that to me. But I never wanted to end up like that. And I knew as a kid, I didn't know why. I felt like an alien, but I
Mhm.
always knew I would make it. But I just wanted to feel safe. Like I wanted to be able to talk about it. And then I
Yeah.
started, my whole life went from that into the Marine Corps, and that world is built on transaction. And I got in trouble in the Marine Corps because every one of my Marines loved me and were loyal as fuck because I cried with them and I asked them about their feelings, and I would tell the bosses to fuck off so they couldn't fire me because my Marines wouldn't work without me.
Mhm.
And it was like, no, like they just need somebody to stand. And when I got into entrepreneurship, I started the wrong way. When it was all transactional, I realized like none of this matters. And so when I
Mhm.
started doing this and teaching this, it was because I wanted to give back for what I didn't have, because that's also the accountability to my sobriety to have the impact that I want to have, no matter how dark the demons get, so that I
Mhm.
remember that my story has a purpose, but only if I choose to use it in a positive manner. And so the reason I'm so protective and I hold people accountable and I hold my boundaries and containers is because the moment I let you in, I will die for you. And like my clients know it, but like I tell my clients I love them. I tell my team I love them. Like my team members quit and they tell me I should have fired them a year ago. Like it's a detriment to me at
Yeah.
many points, but I won't change it because there's no other way for me. And so that's why I do it. And it gets lonely. It gets lonely seeing people's possibility and standing in it and then holding it and then knowing that they're going to attack you and you have to remain constant because it's their path and it has nothing to do with you. And then 2 years later, they're like, I love you. I made $100 million. Sorry, I beat you up and neglected you for 2 years. Hey, welcome back.
Yeah.
But that's the path that I choose, and I love every ounce of it because it's a mirror for me to see where I get to work on myself. But yeah, that's why I do it.
Yeah.
That's why I do everything. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
everything is about what lights my heart up and makes me feel in integrity, and then building a business around it, knowing for me, I think it's all that matters, and I'm so clear on it.
Yeah. I
So yeah,
have.
that one lands.
Thank you for confirming with me that, and I'm happy to confirm to you. And I
Yeah.
also just want to give one more, well, not just one more, but you have the profile lines are actually some of my favorite things to talk and teach about. It's my free gift on my website because I love it that much. I constantly go back to it and back to it and back to it. I think because it gives such a it just begins to have give you first steps, especially in this world of social media where we are expected, especially as business owners, entrepreneurs, to show up consistently. So this is the
Hmm.
first light that I like to share with people of like, hey, you're designed to show up this way. People are waiting for you to show up this way. So you are a 2-4 profile, which in human design language is the hermit opportunist, and in business speak is the natural networker. So it's sort of a
God, that
it's
lands
it's right.
on both
It's
fronts.
it's both the most introverted energy
Uh huh.
partnered with the most extroverted. And
Yep.
so it's this dance of being so connected and and honestly, George, I knew you had a fourth line before I even got access to your chart, because the fourth line in me honors and recognizes the fourth line in you. It's part of why I continue to choose network marketing for all the hate and discontent and anti
Yep.
MLMers out there. I
Yep.
continue to choose it because I'm wired to get all of my opportunities within my network of friends.
Yep. Yep.
So may as well get paid for word of mouth advertising and all the things,
Yep.
right? Like,
Yep.
this is why I don't take out advertising on social media platforms, because I
Me neither.
trust and allow my network of friends to do the heavy lifting for me. It's
Yep.
perfect that you and I both know Gwen Stacio, and Like
I went to junior
that is
high school with
I
Gwen.
can't even handle it. Cannot handle it. But I can because, and that's just the wonder and the awe and wonder of human design is
Yep.
every time that happens, that's like a faith. It's faith for me. Like this is
Yep.
my new faith walk of, oh my word, I really can surrender.
Yep.
Like, so for you, you have additional permission to only do those things that naturally flow out of you.
Hmm.
I know you do have a lot of struggle and, and tenacity, and now I'm told you why, wired for it. But as you and I hear you evolving. You continually share about, oh, and this is I learned this, and so I evolved it this way. So I do just want to hand you another permission slip to follow the things that have grace and ease just dripping all over them. Because as
God,
the
that is a
natural
line. Holy moly, that needs to be a t-shirt.
make
Follow,
it. I'll wear it.
follow the things that have grace and what? Ease dripping all over
Grace
it.
and ease dripping all over it, just oozing in
Someone write
grace and ease.
someone write that down and make a sticker or a podcast. Just send me one, but you can take it. But that is a good one. Team, make sure we
Thank you.
post that one. Team, yeah, I know you're
Yeah.
listening to this. Make sure we post that one.
Yeah, I mean, I love sharing this good news with people because entrepreneurship is hard. It is, it's a
Hmm.
journey. It's and also I just love sharing this good news with you of like, George, you're so naturally gifted. Continue to just choose things that flow naturally out of you. If
Hmm.
you're hitting frustration after frustration and it's just banging your head against the wall, that is again another opportunity to zoom out and say, how can I welcome in more grace and ease? I'm wired for this.
Yeah. And
Um,
that's
and then,
that's been, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. You go.
oh no, I'm happy to let you share if
No, I
that's
want you to
if you'd
finish
like
your
to.
thought. No, finish your thought.
Okay.
Finish your thought.
So then the second flavor added to your profile line, again, these are your public roles. So for you to
Mm,
publicly demonstrate grace and ease
yeah.
is part of what you're here to do. And
You
you've
mean
done
why
that
I
by
made it?
creating systems.
You mean why I had a hoodie made that I wore every day for 3 years that said unapologetically authentic? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah. Accidental.
100%.
Accidental.
I actually do want that hoodie as well. Um, and then your fourth line is so, I mean, like this is relationship speak algorithms.
Yes, it is.
Like, if that is not the most perfect quotable quote to describe the fourth line, I literally don't know what it else is. So, like, when I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a lighthouse and it says
Yeah.
relationship algorithms, like, I was like, Gwen, please, I need to meet him.
Yep.
Like, please, because like the fourth line in me honor recognizes the fourth line in you, and I also just want, as I was doing a deeper dive into your human design with your variables, we don't have to get into all of it, but I'll just share with you your aura. Let me just read these words to you.
Okay.
You literally affect people the most when you're literally in aura with the other person. I know you do so much on social media and with your podcast, but like like when you were talking about, like, I brought in a second chair because I desire to have people
Yep.
with me in this space.
Yep.
And it's why when you're sitting on a plane, if that's not a place where you exchange auras with people, I don't know what is. You're in
You
a
mean where
metal
all my
can.
big clients come from?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Because they have no choice but to be affected by your aura,
Hmm.
like literally.
And the
And
and
that's
the
why
relation
I'm
the relationship with it between the two and the four, the hermit and the opportunist, is that
mhm,
stillness allows me to
mhm,
measure the gas tank. So when I get on an airplane, it's either headphones in or out and energy on or off. And it's
yes.
in respecting where I am, like knowing that, like, if
Mhm,
I'm sad or if I'm processing something, like I have to be integrous to stay in. Um,
yes.
and it's interesting because in life, the relationships and the opportunities where my aura was out when it should have been in always led to
Mhm,
massive amounts of pain. And so that's been probably the biggest line for me in understanding what I'll call the very thin veil between hermit and opportunist, and
Hmm.
it's the difference
Hmm.
between codependency and
Mm.
non-codependency. And the
100%.
and the only secret is stillness before each one to be fully acknowledged and aware. But for everybody listening, if you want to understand why on my podcast, if I say something out of integrity, I immediately try to clean it up. It's because that's the only thing that allows me to keep going based on what I just said. And
Mm.
so when I'm giving a keynote and I'm like, oh my God, and I made X, and I'm like, oh wait, that number didn't matter. That was for my ego, not for you. Everybody
Mm.
thinks I'm trying to be like funny or like I'm trying to be as integrous as possible, or else I will not be able to finish giving the talk. And so when you see me
Yeah.
stop events and then I sit on the floor and in front of somebody, it's because I can't move on unless I feel like I can bring that moment back into integrity. And so that's for those that have been to my event and you see me do this with people, it's actually like my sobriety, if that makes sense,
Mm.
to choose myself and
100%.
like what matters to me, for lack of better term. So that's how it reflects for me.
Well, and I just want to again confirm and add a little bit more flavor to what you just shared, because this human design is a body awareness system.
Yes. Yes.
And for you to, I mean, like, I am just like, oh, George, please just gather all the generators in the world and get them embodied,
Send them
please.
my way, girl. Just keep
Because,
sending them my way.
right? Oh, done. Don't underestimate my fourth line
I won't.
influence. And I do
I
not
just
underestimate yours either.
I just made sure I opened a universal connection to yours. I wanted to
Yeah,
let the universe
yeah,
know I was open to receive yours.
I love it. Same, same, brother, same. Because the way you just described owning your aura at a body level and literally like putting your body on the ground to get as much of yourself on that grounding energy, because it's a huge part of your design, as I just shared. And to know that you are impacting people at an auric, energetic, deep spiritual level. And
Mm,
I love that you take that so seriously, because if that's not the calling of really every human, but honestly, every generator, because we're talking gut to gut connection. And, and, and so I really, and also just again, more confirmation, the stillness trait and strength you have is your grounding presence. You've got your
yep,
conscious sun and your grounding earth, and your
yep,
grounding earth is stillness.
yep,
And to honor that you do require to pull into your hermit crab shell, your shell, to rest
yep,
and recharge. And those are the moments that you can reemerge, hold space for a room, for a client, for a person on the
yep,
plane, for the coffee
yep,
barista, for,
yep,
like,
yep,
and I just really, I love that you take that so seriously. It's serious. It's a big deal.
yeah, yeah.
So
I
those
look at it.
that's what you have consistent access to.
I love it, and to share for everybody. Like I think about this. Like I don't think it's my job to know my purpose. Um, I think it's
Mm,
my job to use the tools that are in my hand, and if I'm going to use them in integrity. And so
mm,
when I
mm,
think about that, it's just when I think about people like talking about that hermit opportunistic energy, there's also, I'd say, 8 out of 10 times where I check into my body and I'm like, you know what? I didn't used to have the capacity to do this, but I can stretch this 20% because I'm just tired. But tired is a feeling, it's not a state of being. Okay, I'll have the conversation anyways. And so
mm,
now I look at like every single opportunity as a moment to sharpen the sword. And I will say that
mm,
it's not without speed bumps and
mm.
nails in the fence and band-aids that I get to put on. Um,
Yes.
but it feels like the fastest path to truth and freedom and service, because like what I also recognize is I don't feel, and I don't mean this from a place of um, lack of, but I don't feel qualified to teach what I teach
Mm,
because I know what I know because I walked through what I walked through, which is why I'm also very intentional to tell people like this is not because I've read some book or I've mastered this. This is because I've learned enough of this to be dangerous to keep myself in that action, to keep sharpening this sword, right? Or brightening my light to keep the
mhm,
lighthouse on. But
mhm,
I think for me, I just remind myself that being is an active state and it's
mm,
not passive. And so I look at these opportunities like they're my workout every day to live and to
mhm.
be. And
Yes.
it's just like chunking it down. But like everything you said is like, obviously I've cried, my heart rate's up. Like, yeah, this is everything. And it's so validating and it's
Mhm,
so like you said, it allows you to feel seen, to understand, to make
mhm.
sense. And I know there's so
Yes.
many people listening to this right now that are like, that's me. Like, holy shit, that's me.
Mhm,
And I'm
mhm.
telling you, like, I really recommend you look into this. So, Rosie, first, like, just right off the bat, like, what is your website and where the hell can everybody find you?
Yes, thank you for asking that. I'm happy
Of
to
course.
share, my friend. So the biggest thing to remember is that my name Rosie is spelled like rosy cheeks. So
Yep.
Rosy.
Yep.
So my other name of my website is tattooed on the other part of my body. Wholeheartedrosie.com will get you to my website, just for consistency and ease. My Instagram is also wholehearted rosie. Please, I love nothing more than for people to slide into my DMs. I love that you
Please.
say that. I'm like, if that's not
Yes.
the fuel of every fourth line person is to make a
Uh-huh.
connection at a personal level,
Yep.
um, that I'd be honored to have you slide into my DMs and we can continue to talk about. I'd be honored to reflect your brilliance back to you. And if I
Yeah,
may
I would
just
go
insert
ahead,
one other
please.
thing for your
Yeah.
second line,
Yeah.
um, in what you just shared, is the second line doesn't see themselves as clearly as others see you.
Uh-uh.
And so to allow others to call your brilliance out of you, and I think you've created such a beautiful space to do that on your podcast. I know you have like awakening after awakening after awakening as you partner with people,
Yeah.
and that's perfect.
Yeah.
And so for you to not really know and to not really be super strategic about it is perfect. I just
Yeah.
want to validate that for you as well.
It's the
Um,
only thing that
we
feels
didn't
real
even
to
get
me.
it. Mm, yeah.
It's the only
Oh.
thing that feels real. And the reason, like I've told this on the podcast, like I spent most of my childhood reading people to survive. And not out of a
Mm,
place of meanness, but out of a place of how can I learn how to have leverage, angles, and manipulation to survive, to make it out. But
mhm.
that tool on top of trauma causes a lot of collateral damage. And so then when you heal, the tool still exists, but you have to have a very integrous relationship with it. And for me, that
100%.
relationship is not looking at my toolbox. It's just waiting for the moment to whatever tool shows up in my hand and then just choosing to trust myself
Yeah.
to use it. And so for me,
Yes.
it's like that day to day. Like everyone's like, well, what do you do? I'm like, honestly, like you're better off asking somebody else because I just think I belong in a mental institute. But either way, everybody says you can't hide from me. I'll Matt Damon you until you double your business. And so that's what I do. Or I'm your most
I
valuable
love it.
liability is my new one. That's what I've been saying, Rosie. Everyone's like, what do you
It's
do? I'm like,
perfect.
honestly, best way to describe me, I'm your most valuable liability. And now I have a pink poker chip I give them.
Yes, it's so perfect, George. I don't know if we have time for me to talk about what your
We can do that.
openness is for people.
Yeah, we can wrap with that. That would be a perfect place to land the plane.
Okay. So I will
Perfect.
gladly, you can just say, "Hey, listen to minute 38 and Rosie will tell you what I do."
I love it. I love it.
Because we
it
did
it's
spend,
more
I'll
it
make it
minute
quick. I'll
40.
make it quick.
It's minute. No, no, you can go, but it's minute 48 for the
Okay.
record. So team, make sure we cut
Okay.
this one out too. So when anybody asks what I
Okay.
do, team, we're gonna send them this soundbite. And Rosie, you can make it as much as you want.
Okay. So, as I shared what your consistent strengths are, when you partner with someone, you will naturally activate into those consistent strengths that we spent the
Mhm.
first 48 minutes talking about. The second 48 minutes, just kidding, it's not going to be that long. you, so it is a yin and a yang. It's a sending and a receiving. So you're sending out tenaciousness, judgment, and concentration. You are receiving people's mental plane. You literally sit in their brain. And your brain, which I love that your show is called the Mind of George show. It's perfection. You literally have an unlimited access to pull inspiration out from other people's brains, because the people whom you're attracting, this is your lighthouse light, by the way. This is the light, and all the moths are flying to you because they're like, George, I've never felt so deeply seen and understood by you. How did you just pull that out of my head? And it's literally what you're designed to do. Your mind activates when partnered with somebody else who's in chaos and confusion and doubt and over analysis paralysis and asking a million questions, and they can't get organized. You can sit with them, get them organized, get them strategic, answer their questions, pull out their inspiration, and that's just at the mental plane. So that's what you
Mhm.
do mentally for your entrepreneurs and your partners and people whom you choose to partner with. You do have an undefined throat. So what that means is you are an exceptional listener, and you're also able to call bullshit when people are giving you words that are not in alignment. You instantly know that they are outside of integrity, out of alignment, proving themselves, striving to be seen in ways that are not correct for them. You know how to get them marketing, talking, communicating, and in action steps that they need. Um, you have an undefined G center, you have undefined identity and direction. So I honor all of the stories and struggles and all the roles you've taken on. This is part of your journey, friend. And also, when you partner with someone else, this is such a big deal, friend. This is such a big deal. You partner with people who are here to lead and guide and direct others, but you know how to polish their lighthouse so they can do it even more effectively, because that this is humongous energy. This is that Care Bear stare lighthouse heart energy, and you know what they need to get their heart in alignment, their message clear, so they can bring in the correct people and guide and direct others.
Yep.
You know how to do that for others. You also know how to get people literally and physiologically safe back in their bodies, work life balance. You know if people are showing up in ego, and I just want to honor when you're like, oh, I spit out a number. There, more than likely, it's because you are amplifying somebody else's ego energy in that moment. And so, I just again want to honor you plopping down on the ground and getting back into your body and your energy. You are amplifying everyone else's egoic, proving energy. So you help them, because there are some people who are here to prove something. You
Mhm.
help them do it in a healthy way,
Mhm.
because it's the smallest little shape on the body graph with some of the biggest energy. An ego can fill a whole room, it can steamroll everybody, or it can be channeled for people to get their life, their business, their finances, their material possessions, their time in alignment. And it does, just like the heart pushes out oxygenated blood and then pulls and rests for half a second, and in that half a second is when the blood gets oxygenated to be pushed back out. So you help people get their pulse, their heartbeat of their business back online in a healthy pace and a healthy rhythm. And last but not least, my friend, you are so deeply empathic. You literally have a completely open emotional solar plexus. And if I cannot tell you how perfect your lighthouse illustration, branding, message is, it's you are designed to bring in the people who are being tossed around in their own emotional storms. Friend, this is why I have this lighthouse tattooed on my arm. I had an intuitive person say to me, Rosie, you're buzzing around in the ocean, rescuing people who are drowning by choice when you're designed to have, I cry every time, your feet on solid ground, shining your light, and the people who need your light will see it and get themselves to safe harbor. You are not here to tug them in. You are not here to pull them out of the water. They are designed to do their own damn work, and you just shine a light.
Yep.
So you brought up codependency, and we didn't have a time to get into the
It's
shadow
okay.
side of all of this openness,
It's okay.
friend. Maybe that's another call for another day or a
We'll do
private
that one
call
too
because
because we'll do that because I don't mind talking about my shadows. I know them all.
yeah, yeah, and that's powerful awareness. But I
Yeah.
I was happy to so just so you know that's
That's
you're
beautiful.
designed to attract people that most of the time, George, as you know, they're coming to you in needing help in
Yeah.
their unhealthy expression and all of those in
Yeah.
all of those
And
energies.
yeah, and so to tie this together to everybody to know, when I wrote that mission statement to stand with structure in the face of resistance to create possibility, what that meant to me in the moment is that for the 34 years of my life where I'd experienced the pain and the trauma, the reason I'd experienced that wasn't so that people knew my story because I went through it. It's so that when I found parts of theirs, I could relate mine to them so that they could heal on their own, but it have nothing to do with me because my ego and my integrity, I have to understand that like this path for me is that I can only be my own example and I can't write a book or approach a book or teach a book that I'm still in the middle of. And so the lighthouse
Mhm,
analogy for me was actually accountability, saying if I ever find myself trying to jump in the water, that's me choosing my
mhm,
ego and my past over my future and their future. So that's where it
mhm,
came from. And just to tie it together, my first ever teacher in any space of work, personal development, on day one of meeting her, I had such a big ego and so much energy in the room. She checked me and she's like,
mhm,
I know you without knowing you. Let me guess. You can either swim against the stream or you can go with it. But you're committed to swimming against it your whole life because you're going to prove to everybody that you can make it, right? And she's like, I'm like, yeah, why do you think I'm standing here? And she's like, well, here's the deal, buddy. Visionaries
mhm,
stand up and they realize the water's only 6 inches deep. And that was the first thing that any teacher had like ever said to me in this space when Lindsay broke up with me because of how unhealthy and traumatized I was and said I had to do personal development in order to have a chance to have a family. And then
mhm.
that's the first thing that was said to me. And so yeah, all of it ties together. And so
Yeah.
this was an absolute beautiful, beautiful gift and reflection. And for everybody listening, this felt very interesting, more so anything very humbling, and my heart's all tingly and I'm a little nervous, but this is all true. This is the easiest way to summarize my life for me in 57 minutes to understand what or how I see my brain and like make sense of what's here. This makes so much sense. So it's very,
Mhm.
very validating. So I also feel very raw right now in a very open way, but this is for you to know if you've ever been a client of mine or ever been a student of mine or ever had me cry with you or laugh with you, or those of you that have said to me, it's like when I stand in front of you, it's like I'm standing in it with you. That is what I do. And it used to hurt a lot more because I didn't know what it was. And now I do. But that's why my life has been this way is like my life, like I belong in the mud with you. Like I've been to the top of the mountain and I don't enjoy it up there. Like I want to be in the
Mhm,
trenches with people and I'm like, I have it now. And I'm like, I will jump down there with you. I will walk side by side with you and I
mhm,
won't quit even if you do. And I will kick you in the shins until you get back up because I don't want to do it alone. So that's kind of
mhm.
how I see life, business in general. And so I think that's why
And all God's people
relationships beat
said amen.
algorithms.
It's
I
all
think I think
perfect.
I think my amen is relationships beat algorithms. I think that's where we're going to
Yeah.
land the plane. Rosie, this was
We just had church.
we just went to church and I need to go integrate on my Sunday with my day with the Lord because that
Mhm.
that
There
that
you
tickled
go.
my soul for lack of better
Mm,
terms, and there's some energy vibrating in my body that requires some stillness practice right now.
there you go. Well, you've got the tools, my friend, and thank you for
I
sharing them with the rest of us.
I cannot tell you, Rosie, from the bottom of my heart, how much of a gift this was. No matter which way you choose to
Mm,
see this, like I feel indebted to you for this, and I know I'm not, but just this was serendipitous and perfect. And thanks for the emotions, thanks for the tears, thanks for holding space, thanks for taking me through that, thanks for sharing your gifts in my audience. Thanks for
mm,
seeing me, more importantly, and being seen and being willing to do this. And for everybody listening, uh, please do me a favor and go love bomb the shit out of Rosie, like everywhere that you can, because I feel like the more you absorb this magic and this Care Bear energy, the faster everything works and gets better. And you'll be seeing more of Rosie in our life, I'm sure. So, and it's even pink. I love it. I love it. So,
you know.
I know, I know, I know. So, for everybody listening, thanks for another window into the Mind of George show, and Rosie described it perfectly. Remember, I said I'd name the show because I feel like it belongs in a straitjacket, so I only share the safest, most processed parts with you. And that is now the best way to describe the show based on today's podcast. So we're going to keep that one.
Mm,
And I'll ask this again. If you haven't left a review for the show and you feel so inclined or called, I would love it. I
mm,
read every one of them and I don't ask enough. But to make it easy, I remembered this today. You can go to ratethispodcast.com/George, George, and it'll pull it up for you. But I would love it if you gave me that gift. But Rosie, we will do this again. We will record the shadow side, and then we will ask ourselves the safety net of if that belongs in the world yet, or if I'm still processing. And so we'll play that one by
sure.
ear. And then, yeah. So thank you so much for everybody. Go check out what's the website again?
Wholeheartedrosie.com.
Wholeheartedrosie.com. So
Mhm.
WHOLEHEARTEDROSY.com. And then is Instagram the same?
So Instagram's the same.
Instagram's the same. So you have her permission, my permission, and you have my loving kick in the shins to go slide into her DMs first. Don't do my review till you DM her. Then you can do my review. She's first. Go give it away.
Thank
So,
you.
Rosie,
Thank
thank
you.
you so much. For everybody listening, thank you so much. This has been another episode of the Mind of George Show. We like to see you in the next episode, or you hear me in your earballs. But either way, we are out.